Welcome everyone to the technical analysis video of the CFO Swinger Watch newsletter for the week of February 12th through 16th. Alright, let's get started off with the markets. So, the S&P 500 SPY is now over $500. We have finally made it to this critical psychological whole number level, and last week we closed over that $500 whole number level at $501.20. So is this bullish? Very much so. But now I want to bring up the relative strength indicator, the RSI. So as we continue to move up higher, okay, the RSI continues to deepen its hidden bearish RSI divergence. All right, so the RSI is yet again at 72.56, or simply over 70. And if you guys know what that is, well, when the RSI's value is over 70, that means that we are overbought. But does it mean that we'll be seeing a reversal, an immediate reversal? No, we need to see and look at the bigger picture. And what is the bigger picture? Well, as the market continues to climb up higher and trudges on up higher, the RSI continues to make lower highs, but not lower lows. All right. So as long as the market continues to go up higher, we may even invalidate this lower highs on the RSI. But now, the number one thing that's worrying me, other than this hidden bearish RSI divergence, is the volume. So the daily volume continues to drop, and the average daily volume continues to drop as well. And so if the volume continues to thin out every single day in new all-time high territory, that could spell trouble for some bulls. But yet, if you go on the weekly time frame, the momentum is still very much bullish. And we have yet to see the weekly average volume to fall off. And so far, the weekly average volume has been pretty much consistent for the last couple of weeks. So if you go back on the daily time frame, everything looks pretty good for the bulls, even for this week. Now, there are some underlying problems that I have shown you guys in the market summary part of the newsletter. So make sure you guys go back and read all of it. Yes, it's quite long for this week, but I highly recommend you guys to read through all of it from top to bottom before you guys watch this video. So the S&P 500 SPY here continues to make higher highs and higher lows, while all those different possible indications of a potential reversal are still being made. Right? They're still currently underway. So what I've drawn here for you guys right now is this potential ascending channel that could give us a break to the downside. But if you guys have been following me for a long time, you guys should know that the S&P 500 tends to break up higher on ascending channels or even rising wedges. So inherently bearish chart patterns become negated by the price action itself as it breaks over the respective resistances. All right, so in this case, this price can definitely negate this entire chart pattern, this bearish chart pattern, if it breaks over this ascending resistance trend line. So that's the reason why I gave you guys that potential maximum price target just for this week at $505. So 505. Okay, so $505 is my maximum price target for this week for SPY. And of course, we can always go higher. All right. So again, this S&P 500 definitely seeing some signs just based on a simple technical indicator like the RSI or just based off of volume. But you guys should most definitely read the market summary from top to bottom to see what else, what other signs are currently indicating that the market could be in for a potential reversal later on this month or maybe into early March. All right. So for this week, again, I truly believe that the market will most likely tighten up into this Friday's OPEX, which means that we can possibly be ranging in between around 499 to around 505. Again, that's my maximum target or even profit target if you guys are long SPY for this week. So definitely watch out for gap ups or gap downs with each trading day of this week. Right, we can have a lot of volatility trading day to trading day. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at our first name, SQ. So this tech name is looking very interesting. All right, so first of all, I want to take a look at this on the weekly time frame. There's a lot to digest here, but I want to point out the most important parts about this chart. So first of all, SQ had a quick dip below this line in the sand level at 51.50. I believe I pointed this out back in, right around here when we found a nice support in mid-October to late October. And I told everyone, to you guys, to the private members and students, that this 51.50 level will hold and we'll see a potential reversal back to the weekly 50 SMA, and that's exactly what we did. So this was a perfect opportunity for a mean reversion trade, or reversion back to the mean, right? So after it reached this weekly 50 SMA, we got exactly what we expected to see when we first see the price retesting its weekly 50 SMA. So as you guys can imagine, that weekly 50 SMA is usually surrounded by a lot of short sellers. And that's exactly what we got. And earnings did not help as well. Our earnings didn't help for a slight pump up higher. And eventually, we start to make a major level at $80. Or if you want to be more specific, 80.30. Or if you guys want to round up, 80.50. Okay. So what occurred after this was basically a downtrend. And then we moved back up. And then once we came back to retest 80.50, we saw an immediate rejection down that was started by an earnings report back in late July, I believe. Okay, actually early August. So on this weekly candlestick, and we briefly moved below 51.50, and then we immediately snapped back up higher, and we saw a crazy amount of buying bullish momentum. And this was obviously got a lot of help from the October's low, the market October low from October 27th, which led into more bullish momentum coming into the markets around early November. And SQ definitely saw an opportunity to continue to bid the price up higher, and that's exactly what it did for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive weeks. Now, what's interesting about SQ now, okay, so now we're back into the kind of current price action or current price action area, is that SQ actually topped out around that same time frame from December 27th through December 28th. Now, if you guys have read the newsletter, you guys will understand why those two dates are important. So make sure you guys, again, this will be the last time that I'll be saying it in this video, read the market summary. So SQ has really just pulled back from that 80.50 level again and again. You guys can use 80.50 or $80. It doesn't make much of a difference. It's only a 50-cent difference, right? So SQ here has completely kind of moved inversely from its peers, and it's actually moved back down, while the other tech leaders and its tech peers have continuously moved on up higher from its October's lows. So SQ here, it's pretty interesting to see that it hasn't been, leading with the other tech stocks. But again, if we take a look at the monthly, SQ has been absolutely dragged back to the ground. All right, so this is a pretty hectic looking chart pattern or price action and price history on the monthly time frame. Now, obviously, all my trend lines are from coinciding time frames, as TradingView likes to lay over all the different trend lines from all the different time frames. But we have a better and clearer chart here. So what we have here is a typical chart here after a euphoric run up, and now we had this big, very, very quick move down, and after we're getting this very nice base, right? A stage 1 base is what we like to call it through stage analysis. And so if you go back in the weekly now, this sort of detachment from its tech peers and other tech leaders is really intriguing to me, because now SQ is considered very much a tech laggard. So I love the fact that instead of rejecting and continuously and rather quickly moving below to the downside after rejecting from 80.50, we've started to consolidate at the 67.50-ish level here, this whole number level. And I find that very interesting, because in the previous times when we've rejected from 80.50, we continued to move lower and lower and lower until we either got really close to this line in the sand level, or like in the middle of October and late September, we decided to break below 51.50. So to me, this is intriguing, because on the weekly time frame, we continuously continue to tighten up right underneath this weekly 10 SMA, which will allow the weekly 21 SMA to catch up. And I also love the fact that we've now started to use the weekly 50 SMA as an area of support. So it's not acting as a crux anymore to long and short-term bulls. So as long as we continue to stick around the 67.50 weekly level, and as long as we continue to tightly consolidate near this weekly 21 SMA, the 10 SMA, the weekly 21 here will eventually catch up and continuously curl up higher, which will allow the price to retest and bounce away from the weekly 21 SMA and eventually break up higher. And so currently right now, overall, if that does occur, we'll be forming a right shoulder, which is going to be a part of a larger macro chart pattern, which is called an inverted head and shoulders chart pattern. All right, so we have a very large macro, inherently bullish chart pattern here. So what we have here is a left shoulder, an inverted left shoulder, and an inverted head, and a potential inverted right shoulder that could be currently underway. Now, obviously, this one has earnings on February 22nd. That's next week. So, my current analysis on this can be completely negated based on how the price reacts. But SQ, again, this one, I want to keep my eye on this one because of the fact that it's been kind of acting in a very peculiar way based on, comparing it to its peers and overall tech leaders. But overall, SQ tightly tightening up, right? I can't really explain it more than just saying tightly tightening up. And overall, this macro inverted head and shoulders chart pattern is really intriguing to the long side. All right, and obviously we have that neckline at this critical $80.50 resistance level here. So if we're able to retest it again for the fourth time, okay, since we started to make this resistance level back in, I would say, between January to February, that will give us that fourth retest, which will eventually give us that breakout. And so for just this week, okay, I want to see, okay, if I can find There we go. My text here. So I want to see a potential long entry point over $70. So over $70.10. Why? Because last week's high was at $69.90. So if we're able to break over last week's high, we should be good for a large, quick move up higher to 72, and eventually, okay, around the mid-term range, at least 80.50. Okay, that's the maximum mid-term profit target if we do get a nice entry point at 70.10. Now, okay, last week we saw SQ basically moving inversely to the market, and we also saw volume coming in to back up this move down last Friday. So if we do see a continuation of that move down this week or just even tomorrow, we can potentially see a retest of $62. So this is the daily support level. All right, this is where we also pivoted away from right from this support level back in January 26th, right? And also, if you go back on the weekly time frame, 62 is currently where the weekly 50 SMA is residing at. And actually, last Friday, the weekly 50 SMA closed at $62.13. So if we do come back down to retest the weekly 50 SMA or just the daily level of $62, the support level, I would expect to see another bounce and a potential move up higher as we get nearer towards earnings, right? And we could potentially bank on a potential earnings run up. And that's the reason why I gave you guys this long bounce entry at $62.10. All right, so that's kind of my deep dive into the technical analysis for SQ. Now, don't forget, guys, this tech name has been basing for a long time. So if it decides to break over this $80.50 level, it can have a very good run to the upside and possibly back towards that triple digit number of $100 per share. Okay, so the last name for us this week is PDD. Right, so as I've mentioned in the market summary, I want to take a look at one of the strongest and one of the best performing Chinese stocks. Okay, and this is PDD. Right, PDD has been one of the strongest tickers and companies for the last year. Right, at least I think it's over a year now. And PDD on the weekly time frame looks really good. So first of all, we have come back down to retest the weekly 21 SMA for the first time after breaking over it and moving away from it back in its earnings report back in August 29th. And so this is looking pretty good because whenever we come back down to retest the weekly 21 SMA after a very nice run up, we tend to hold it. That's right, we tend to hold it. And so there are really good plays and opportunities for us to catch and capitalize on when this occurs. And so if you go back down in a daily time frame now, right? Let's bring this over now. Okay. Right. There is one concerning factor to consider, right? We've had a very large move down back in January of 29th with a nice gap down as well, which we never filled. And this is all backed up by very unusual sell-off volume, right? And so this is telling me that there is a potential for this one to continue to move down with lower highs and lower lows. But that weekly time frame or chart is too enticing to ignore. And that's the reason why I want to take a look at this and kind of have a poke at it for the long side here, the long trade. And so first of all, I give you guys an entry point, quite an early entry point, over 129.10. But if you guys don't really care about the difference between the next entry point, which is more of a confirmation entry point, a better and less riskier entry point over 130.10, which is again just a dollar difference between the early and a little bit of a higher risk entry point compared to the more of a confirmed entry point. I mean, you guys can just choose the 130.10. But again, if you guys are willing to take more risk this week, 129.10 will be a pretty good entry point, right? An early entry point could be better, but also at the same time, it could be bad, especially if you are, especially if you get shaked out or if you get faked out, right? Or shook out, excuse me. So PDD on the daily time frame, I was pretty attracted to the fact that the price was able to close over the daily 10 SMA. And whenever we stick close to the daily 10 SMA and we close over the daily 10 SMA, we tend to get a run up, a very rapid run up to the next SMA, which is obviously going to be the daily 21 SMA. So for now, just know this. The daily 10 and the daily 21 SMAs are going to be acting as areas of resistance. Okay, so we're playing the odds are against us, is what I'm trying to say here, right? We're playing against the trend, and the trend is to the downside. So what we're trying to capitalize on here is a potential quick reversal back to the upside to retest the daily 21 SMA. And that's the reason why if you're able to get a nice entry point over 130 this week, we can see a very nice breakout over 130. Obviously needs to be backed up by a very good buying volume, and we can see a very rapid move up higher until we retest the daily 21 SMA, or we see that retest of this 136 resistance level, which was a huge level of support when the price was basically just moving sideways for about 2 months, or I think for 2 months. So the price was moving sideways for 2 whole months, and this 136 level, when it broke, that's when we saw that huge, unusual amount of selling volume. And so if we're able to get kind of this quote-unquote sneaky buyback in at over 130 for confirmation, we should be able to see a very quick short-term bullish momentum to the upside, to see a nice retest of 136, which was a previous old level support, which will then turn into a new level of resistance as we reject off of this new level of resistance and off of this daily 21 SMA. Okay, so the one thing that I do not want to see on this name this week is if we do break over 130, I do not want to see the price just kind of holding off from moving up higher, and instead of rapidly moving up higher, it starts to move sideways, right? If we do decide to move sideways, then the daily 21 SMA will continue to catch up to the price, and eventually it will bring along its sellers, right? Because again, the daily 10 and daily 21 are areas of resistance now, not areas of support, as we've seen for most of last year for PDD. So again, if we do see a breakout of a 130, we need to see a very good amount of buying volume. Okay, now I love the fact that last week we saw very, very little volume, even if the overall sentiment for Thursday and Friday was bearish. But near the end of the day, we saw PDD rising up higher, giving us a very nice, tiny lower wick here, which can potentially lead us into 130 come tomorrow. Okay, now if you go to the 2-hour time frame, we're also dealing with, well, this looks pretty familiar, right? So it looks like it has a nice inverted head and shoulders chart pattern, just like what we saw on SQ, but on a very, very tiny scale compared to SQ's weekly massive macro inverted head and shoulders chart pattern. So PDD here on the 2-hour time frame. We're still currently making this right shoulder just like SQ, but on a much smaller scale. And if we are able to break over 128 on the intraday time frame here, on the 2-hour time frame, we should be able to see a nice move to 130 and potentially have a nice breakout over 130 as we head over to 136. And again, we need to see a rapid ascent to this previous old support level, okay, and also to this daily 21 SMA. All right, we need to see that very, very quick and rapid move to the upside, or else we need to get out, because we do not want to see the price sticking to 130 and moving sideways, or else we're going to see that surge of sellers coming in to make sure that the price gets slammed back down and eventually lose the daily 10 SMA once more. All right, so that is it for this week's technical analysis video on the tickers that we're watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this lengthy technical analysis video, and if you guys did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up down below and leave a comment on what you guys are personally watching other than the watch list here. And most importantly, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so that you guys know when I have uploaded a new video or when I am live. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of your night.